Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for allowing us to come to your feet, to ask prayer for one another, for our nation. But Father, thank you for repairing our own hearts and are showing us weaknesses that we need to rely on you with. Father, use this message to further drive us home. The only way we can improve to be like you is to work on ourselves. Father, continue to show us our flaws and what you want us to work on to glorify you. I ask this in your Son's name.
Amen.
Thank you. Well put, sir. I didn't bring my mic, so I'm going to talk up loudly, and that's kind of thing I kind of forget. Some of you got an image this week, about a worshiping family or group of people in India that I think I sent to most of you. They sent that there, and it was kind of encouraging to me. So I tried to place them on the map, and they're just about at that little edge of that juts out outside of India by Pakistan. Any place you see that's dark, the Bible is either illegal or dangerous. And about 78% of our listeners or viewers coming from places like this because it's too dangerous to have a Bible. And so I didn't set it up that way. It's just the way it's happened because they're not really, they're sheep all over the world. And so they don't have access. So to them, I hear from them occasionally, Joey and Gustav and Emmanuel, and they say greetings, and I can't pass on all their messages, but I thought that's kind of exciting. So we're going into places where angels fear to tread, sort of. And that's kind of ironic because in Daniel chapter 2, which I'm only going to go through one chapter today because it's enormous. So I may not even get through all of it, but in Daniel chapter 2, they were kind of in the same situation where it was kind of dangerous to worship their God in the way they wanted, and they could have lost their heads too, or been thrown into a furnace, or been big kitty food, if you know what I mean, in the lion's den. So it was kind of to recap what I was saying last week. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and nobody in the kingdom, no one anywhere could interpret the dream. And you'd be surprised at how many people have asked me, I had a dream, and what do you think this means? I'm thinking, I know here's my answer. I have an answer for you. I don't know. If it's maybe God trying to tell you something in the Bible. So there is no interpretator of dreams. There's no gift of interpretation of dreams. So in Daniel, the king had a dream. Basically, nobody could interpret it. How could you interpret a dream that you didn't even know about? So they sought out all of the wise men in the whole kingdom, and they were going to kill them all. Overreaction, yes. In verse 15, they came to Daniel, and Daniel said, in the second part of verse 15, why is this decree so hasty from the king? The area made this thing known to Daniel. Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him some time. Remember, other people tried to get time, and he said they were stalling. Somehow, he believed Daniel, and so they relented, and they gave him time. So, in verse 17, Daniel did what we would do. He went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would pray. I have a prayer request. We need a urgent prayer request, or we die. That's okay to get a prayer chain going there. We're not going to be lazy, I forgot to add. No, you will remember this. And a lot of people that pray from other parts of the world are in the same boat. They're in the same situation. If they get caught with a Bible or a smartphone with a Bible on it, and a few of them have been discovered. They pray that they would desire mercies, the mercies of God. So they're praying. And by the way, Daniel's still using the Jewish names. He's not using Nebuchadnezzar's names. In verse 17, you'll notice that. So they went into Babylon, but the Babylon wasn't in them. Okay, you can take the country out of the boy, but you can't take the boy out of the country. I think I got it backwards. You know what I'm saying. You can't take the Jewishness out of these men. So they prayed that for the mercies of God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men. It's going to give you a little more sense of urgency in prayer. You're going to be a little more passionate. You're going to be probably more dedicated prayer time. You're going to find time to pray. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel, verse 19, in a night vision, which is basically a dream. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. And Daniel said, blessed be the name of God forever. If you got an answer to a prayer from God that you're going to die, or here's an answer, here's how to handle it, you're going to start praising God. Because I like some of the old Psalms that says, how can I praise you, God, from the grave? So he's saying in the same way. But it's what he's calling, it's a doxology, it's a fancy name for worship or praise to God. He changed. Here's what he says about God, verse 21. Think about the times we're living in now. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings, sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things, verse 22. He knows what's in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O God, verse 23, God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me that we desired of thee. For thou hast made known us unto the king's matter. So Daniel went up to Arioch and said, I've got an answer, whom the king had ordained to destroy all of the wise men, including Daniel and his 3 fellows. So Arioch brought, verse 25, Daniel into the king in haste. That means they probably ran, like run, Forrest, run. The word haste means they did not waste any time. And it said unto him, I have found a man of the captives, or the children of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. And the king answered, said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream, or the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king, and said, the secret which the king has demanded, cannot the wise men and the astrologers, or the musicians, or the soothsayers, or the psychic hotlines, or your horoscope, or your next door neighbor who likes to give you advice. None of them, they're going to help him. He's pointing to one person. But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets and makes known to the king. Not National Enquirer. God only shall make known to the king what is going to be in the latter days. There's a key right there. I'm not going to get hung up. A lot of people get hung up on this image, and they say, well, the image is this, and then the middle here is this, and I'm a post-trib, and I'm this, I'm a mid-trib, and I'm an amillennialist. I'm a pan-millennialist. It's all going to pan out. So I'm not going to get bogged down into the beast, because Daniel's already said, this is what's going to be in the latter days. And even if we try to understand it, I don't think we should fully understand the time. Now I'm hearing dates are set for September 30th, because that is the trump, one of the last holy days in the Jews. The day is coming, the last trump sound. And I says, it could have been a band class next door to you, okay? We don't know when that time is. He had a dream about it. What did you have for supper? God interprets dreams of those things that are clearly revealed through Him and Him alone. This dream and the visions on your head, upon your head, it says visions of your head, meaning what he got in here, and on your bed are these, that this is for the latter days, and these are basically secret things. But verse 30, listen to the humility. But as for me, the secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have, for their sakes, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that you will know that the thoughts of thy heart. In other words, he's giving glory to God, where he says, you should have called me first, king. I had the answer. You don't have to search very far. He actually gave all of the glory to God, where the others were just out questioned. They had no clue. So, jumping up a little bit ahead, I'm going to go to verse 44. I'm not going to go through the parts of iron and the toes and the feet of clay. because I want to give you a conclusion. And it seems like each of these chapters, if you looked at these chapters, each of these chapters is self-contained. They have a beginning and they have an end. It's like 12 books or letters putting into one book. And we'll see that at the end. Daniel 2 verse 44. And in the days of these kings, the latter day kings, they may or may not be here now. We have no idea. I'm not going to try to guess. In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all of these other kingdoms, and it will stand forever. I guess the dream is telling the king, it says, these are man-made kingdoms, but they're only for a time. The kingdom is coming at the end times. When that is, we don't know. But this kingdom is not going to come and go. It will come and stay forever. For as much, verse 45, as you saw that the stone that was cut out the mountain without hands, meaning it was not a work of man, it was a work of God. You know, the 10 Commandments were not cut out by Moses. He didn't have an acetylene torch or a stone cutter or anything. That was by the very fingers of God. So indicating that the source is God himself. God has made known, verse 45, second part, has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter or after this. And the dream is certain and the interpretation is sure. You can count on it because God has given him the interpretation. 46. Listen to the king's humility. Where he wasn't very humble before, he couldn't get an answer. He's ready to kill all of the wise men. Now that he has an answer, the king Nebuchadnezzar, greatest king of the earth at that time, fell upon his face and worshiped Daniel. It would be like, imagine a president of a large nation publicly falling on his face before God, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors or offerings unto him, that it being God. In verse 47, the king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secret, seeing that you could reveal this secret. He gave glory to God. He didn't give it to Daniel. He gave it to God, indicating that's the source of the interpretation of the dream. Verse 48, then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief governors over all the wise men of the earth. What size of that kingdom is? If I took out about 80% of that, and the kingdom at the time was the largest kingdom at the time, and I wish I had a full map that I could color in. This is the largest kingdom at the time, and there were really none like it afterward. And he made Daniel governor or prince over the whole place. And just before that, the day before, he was ready to kill them all. But God answered Daniel's prayer, and by Daniel's obedience, God blessed him to be ruler over all the wise men. The wise men were probably indebted to Daniel because guess what? He saved their necks. Because by him having that interpretation from God, he would have been chief and governor over nobody. Because all the wise men would have been dead, including himself. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat at the gate of the king. You know what that means? You probably heard the gate. If you sit at the gate, that doesn't mean that you're sitting at a gate and you can't get another better office, or they were out of office space in the palace. And the gate is a symbol of, as I can remember Dr. McGee saying, that it's a position of authority, and it's a position of having prominence because you're sitting at the gate, meaning like in ancient times, that meant that you were among the leaders, the chosen leaders of that nation. The gate is where everybody came in and everybody came out. The gate controlled much of the nation and commerce and things like that. So Daniel, fortunately, prayed with his friends to receive an answer, or they would all die. And the book of Daniel would have been only 2 chapters, and it would have been in. So I'm not really going to be able to get into that, but let me just say Nebuchadnezzar, the king, he was so humble. And right after that, what does he do with this image? Remember, he bowed down and he was on his face praising God. We don't know how long it was, but at the very beginning of chapter 3, which I won't get all introduced. The next thing he does, he's making an image that he dreamed all about him. So he took the image that was supposed to be humbling him, which did for a time, and now he's thinking, I'm going to make my own image and make this me, because it went to his head. Yeah. So pride comes before the fall, and we'll see later, next week, God willing, what happens to Nebuchadnezzar as he gets back lifted and, his pride starts getting in the way. And what he failed to see, if you take the word pride, what's right in the middle of it?
I.
It gets us all. None of us are impervious to that. We're all subject to that. And it just kind of sneaks up on us. And it kind of did not affect Daniel, but it did the king, from humility to full of pride. And that is not like something that we all have in common, that we can do that so easily. Would you close for us in prayer, Donnie, sir?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this message that you give Jack for us to hear. We just ask it now that you'll be with us through the rest of the day and the week, so we can come back next week and hear the rest of the story. Be with those who couldn't be here and the ones that are overseas. They can hear Jack's word through the internet. We just ask you to be with them also. And these things we ask in your son's name.